When it comes to business, what you see is almost never the full story. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the hidden forces that secretly decide a company's fate. We're talking about the powerful assets that never ever show up on a balance sheet. Let's dive in. So let me ask you a question. When you think about what really makes a company valuable, what pops into your head? Is it their factories, the cash they have in the bank? I mean, it seems pretty simple, right? But the real answer? Well, it's a lot more interesting than that. On the one hand, you've got all the stuff that's super easy to count. It's right there on the balance sheet for everyone to see. Buildings, cash, inventory. But on the other hand, there's this whole invisible universe of value. A company's reputation, all its private data, its unique culture. And that's where the real story is. So let's start by digging into this massive, unseen treasure trove of corporate worth. And there's a name for these invisible powerhouses: dark assets. A dark asset is basically any valuable asset that's unlisted and often unmeasured, so you're never going to find it on a standard balance sheet. You can think of them as a company's secret weapons. To really get a handle on this, the best way to think about it is like an iceberg. A company's value is just like that. The part you can see sticking out of the water, all those tangible things, that's just the tiny, tiny tip. The real mass, the real power, is all that stuff hidden beneath the surface. And the scale we're talking about here is just staggering. For a lot of modern companies, tangible assets, the stuff you can touch, only make up about 15% of their market value. That means a whopping 85% of their entire worth is locked up in these hidden, dark assets. Just think about that for a second. So what are these things exactly? Well, we're talking about things like the trust people have in a brand, or the mountains of private data and the special algorithms they use to make sense of it all, or that amazing company culture that you just can't manufacture. Then there are key relationships with partners, suppliers, and of course, intellectual property like patents. These are the real engines of modern business. But here's the twist, and it is a crucial one. Wherever you find great value, you're also going to find great risk. And that brings us to the hidden dangers that are lurking in the shadows of these very same assets. You see, for every single dark asset, there's a shadow that follows it around, an intangible risk. The very things that make a company so incredibly valuable are the exact same things that make it incredibly vulnerable. They're two sides of the very same coin. Just think about how direct these connections are. You have this massive treasure chest of customer data, right? Well, its shadow is a catastrophic data breach. You've got this incredible brand reputation. Its shadow is a complete collapse in public trust. That amazing company culture everyone raves about, it can be totally destroyed overnight by a toxic workplace scandal. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory. These risks turn into reality all the time, and the consequences can be absolutely devastating. So let's look at what happens when these invisible dangers become all too real. You know that old saying, right? It perfectly captures this idea. A reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. All those decades of building a brand and earning customer loyalty can literally vanish in an instant. And the financial fallout, it can be absolutely mind-blowing. A single crisis, a data breach, a big scandal can wipe out tens of billions of dollars in market value. In one really famous case with a car company, the damage was over $40 billion. That is a very real price to pay for an invisible failure. For anyone who's invested, the impact is immediate and brutal. Before a crisis, the stock price reflects all that hidden value and trust. But afterward, poof, that value evaporates and the price just tanks. It's a swift and painful reckoning. Okay, so this all sounds pretty dire, I know, but it's not hopeless. The key is to stop ignoring this stuff and start paying attention. We have to start bringing these assets and all their risks out into the light. And really, this brings us to the most important takeaway of all. You cannot manage a risk you haven't even identified. You can't protect an asset you don't even realize you have. Awareness, that is the absolute first step to getting control over your company's real value and its real vulnerabilities. So how do you actually do it? Well, it breaks down into a four-step process. First, you have to identify what your most critical dark assets are. Second, you've got to be brutally honest and assess the shadow risks that are tied to each one. Third, you develop clear strategies to deal with those risks. And finally, and this is key, you have to weave this thinking into how the company is run every single day. It can't be an afterthought. All right, so let's just quickly recap the big ideas here. First, most of a company's value today is hidden. It's off the books. Second, every single one of those hidden assets comes with a hidden risk. And third, awareness is the magic ingredient that turns that vulnerability into a